Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and we are continuing our ship updates video series with Aegis dynamics. There are just so few Aegis ships that this is obviously going to be a very quick video to make. Kill me now. So let's begin at the beginning with the Avenger. The Avenger has a number of different iterations. There's the Warlock, which is the interdiction, the EMP version. There's the Titan, and of course there's the Titan Renegade with the fancy skin on it. And there's the Stalker. I think that there is one other one in there, limited edition livery one, something like that, but in general those are your three main models of the Avenger. The cargo one I think is my favorite one, the Titan, and it's a general all-arounder. If you're looking to get into Star Citizen on a budget and you want a solid starter ship, an absolutely solid starter ship that can do a little bit of everything and isn't something that is going to be, you know, you're not going to immediately run into a brick wall that says, I can't do this, I can't do that. I think that the Titan is the best of the three from that point of view. And for me, it is the ideal starter ship. When you see like, oh, the Mustang, oh, the Aurora, oh, the 100i, garbage. The Avenger Titan is the best, period. It is the best way to get into this game at the lowest price point. In a way that is going to give you an advantage moving forward and giving you the ability to deal with things in a productive and expedient way. I mean, certainly you can go out and you can shoot things with an Aurora, or you can shoot things with a Mustang, but I think that the Avenger is just the best place to take your first steps. And I really, really wish, in all honesty, that there was a permanent package up in the store that was the Avenger Titan with LTI and a game package for Star Citizen. I really wish that that was a thing. But neither here nor there. I like the Avenger Titan. I think that it is absolutely a strong buy. The other models, the Stalker, the Renegade, of course the Stalker if you're planning on getting into bounty hunting, solid. I would look at the Hawk as well. I would consider that. The Warlock with its EMP, that's a very situational ship. I don't doubt its value. I don't doubt its purpose. But I feel that it is going to be a situational ship, so you should be prepared for that if you're going to purchase it. I don't think that it's a bad ship. I just think that it's situational. The Gladius. Now, the Gladius is a ship that initially I was extremely excited about. I was extremely fond of this ship. I like the idea of this is the old fighter that's maybe a little long in the tooth now. It had a very rough and tumble appearance in the original version. There was a lot of, worn edges. You could tell that this is a ship that has been around a while, that has seen a few miles. And I really like that about this ship. I was someone who looked at it and said, oh man, you can stack up to 8 missiles on this thing. That's interesting. That has some possibilities. Yeah, the weapons, the guns weren't all that impressive, but they weren't horribly weak, either. I definitely saw a lot of potential in this fighter, and there was a time when I would have considered this to be a strong recommendation. However, now, the cockpit of the Gladius originally was a triumph in simplicity. It was absolutely gorgeous in how simple it was. It was probably the most realistic cockpit we had gotten up until that point. and it really fit the idea of what this aged out fighter was supposed to be. It really did. The cockpit got a revision for Squadron 42, you know, big modern monitors in it and all of that. And just from an artistic point of view, I think that something was lost in that conversion. It kind of killed the identity of the fighter a little bit. But there was also problems with, you know, the monitors intruding on the pilot's view, and before you say, "Oh my God, Minion, here we go with this thing again." No. What I'm gonna say though is that I don't think that the cockpit view is what killed the ship. I think what killed the ship was the fact that it was power creeped out of viability before the game was ever released. It is still one of those early stages Star Citizen ships, though it was an artistic standout. It was beautiful. It was very well done. It was excellent. But the truth is that in an age with the Anvil Arrow and the Drake Buccaneer, both being fast, nimble, hard-hitting ships, I just feel that the Gladius just doesn't belong anymore. It feels like a dead ship. And sadly, a dead ship before it really got its chance to shine, which at this point seems like it's going to be the first few missions, at least in Squadron 42. And then that's it. The Redeemer. What is up with the Redeemer? When last we left the Redeemer, it was supposedly going back for a redesign. Yeah, CIG was going to go back and look this design over. And certainly I think that nowadays, as the game has evolved, as we've kind of moved into planetary landings and all this sort of stuff, a ship like the Redeemer is not unattractive. In fact, I would say that it has become more attractive since we have seen this shift in the game. Though there are other people who will say, well, I like the Scimitar, I like this, I like that. You know, I like the Drake entry, which is the Brutus, which you're now seeing pictured up on the screen now. And the truth is that most of the finalists in the TNGS competition are all viable prospects for ships in the Star Citizen universe. It's absolutely true of all of them. I mean, they all have a place, they all have a spot that they can sit at. I think that the reason why we are not seeing these ships in the game is because, God, I want to say something, but I feel like there's a warning light in my head that's saying tread carefully. I think that at a time when Star Citizen's ships, their in-house designed ships were very wishy-washy and very, you know, kind of almost nebulous in their purpose and their design, and they were all kind of based on these idealizations that really had no practical bearing on how they would work in the game. These designs, a lot of them came through with very effective, very on-point designs, built to do this, built to do that, and built to do it very well. And they were all very strong ships that you could see very easily, even in the current universe, would almost immediately be dominant. And I think that that's why they're not here, because they were simply too good. Whatever ship that you liked, whatever ship that you preferred, whatever ship that you thought was outstanding in that competition that you wished won, picture it now living and breathing in the current iteration of Star Citizen. Is there any version of that in your imagination where that ship isn't ridiculously strong, ridiculously dominant? Is it inherently because it has bigger shields, bigger engines, bigger guns? No. It's because almost to a T, especially in the finalists, those were very effective, very purpose-built designs designed to do one thing, which is to go in and to kick ass. And they are all solid kick-ass ships. And that's the problem with them. They're too good. All of them are too good. I don't care if you like the Boomslang, the Scimitar, the Brutus, it doesn't matter. They're all so good and so many people want them, and that's why CIG does not want them. because they would become invariably must-have ships. Because people will go, oh, you gotta get to this, you gotta get to that. And a lot of the ships that CIG has designed and sold over the years, I'm sorry to say this, a lot of, not all, but a lot of them would simply get completely manhandled and run over by these ships. Because when the community was challenged to come up with the next great starship, they came up with better ships than CIG had come up with at that point, and to a certain degree, with very few exceptions, since. So what's going to happen? Or should you buy a Redeemer if they even open up the Redeemer to sale? No. Because this ship is going to continue to collect dust until no one owns it, and then they're just quietly going to put it on a shelf somewhere and forget it ever happened. The Vulcan. Now, the Vulcan is, of course, a ship that would probably be more suitable with Anvil than with Aegis. Now, I'm not talking about aesthetics. I'm talking about because Anvil has the Crucible. So the big repair ship, it would kind of make sense that they would kind of go with the little repair ship there as well. I'm not sure why this ended up in Aegis's hands. I'm sure that there's a lore write-up on that, but whatever. This is a ship that I kind of attach a question mark to. And I go, how effective of a day in, day out career is repair, rearm, and refueling going to be? Certainly there's a lot of people out there who are going to be like, of course, people are always going to want, all those things. But because it's such a small ship, it really can't do any of the three to such an amazing degree as to make it worthy of, the investment. I think that I question how successful this ship is going to be, because it doesn't really appear to carry a lot of fuel, doesn't appear to carry a lot of ammunition. Its repair facilities might end up simply being its bread and butter, and the other two are, things that are nice to have around. And how often are you going to be in a position to use that? Because how often are you going to be in a situation where someone isn't going to just opt to go to a station and have their ship fully and properly repaired versus a patch-up job just to get them home? It certainly does have a place, but day in, day out, I'm not sure how much use you're going to get out of it. As the game evolves and as the fuel requirements of ships appear to be lessening, to the point where ships can make these longer trips between planets without the need for refuel. Refueling is becoming a less frequent request. So obviously there's going to be a need out there from time to time. People are going to need gas to make the extra long trip, or they're going to want to just fuel up just that little bit to get all the way home. It's possible, but it's something that I would have to see in practice in the universe to really get a balance on, because it seems right now like CIG is leaning more towards players being less interdependent on each other and becoming a little bit more fuel independent. And so if that trend continues, that could be kind of a kick in the nuts to this ship. The Javelin. Yeah, a ship that probably shouldn't be on this video just because it is so out of reach and so niche that how broadly applicable it is. There's probably a lot of people who be like, oh my god, I would totally get a Javelin if I had the chance to buy one. And speaking as someone who factually did have the opportunity to buy a Javelin, and I'm not talking about, well, I was going to get, I was there and I could have put it in my basket back then and I could have taken my chances. No, I was offered a Javelin and I turned it down. What had happened is that someone who indeed had kind of won and purchased one, but had it in holding and hadn't completed the purchase yet, was about to kick it back out into the shop. And they were in contact with someone that I knew who was a fairly prolific ship trader and dealer. And that person, got in contact with me and said, listen, there's a Javelin. It's going to be going up back on the marketplace, at this odd hour. And if you want it, it's there, and I'll tell the person to kick it back out at a certain time so that you'll be the first person who knows that it's there and can scoop it up. And it wasn't beyond the realm of possibility that I could have picked it up. I opted away from it. I said no thank you, and the reason behind that is because I was very sensitive to my experience playing EVE Online and owning a mothership, and what that did to my gameplay. At first, getting into it was like, oh my god, yes, absolutely. And then owning it, operating it, and just kind of having it, I thought it was going to be the ultimate freedom vehicle. It ended up being an elaborate prison, in my opinion. I was always trapped by it. There was nothing else I could do beyond it. And I really did not enjoy it at all. And so I looked upon the Javelin the same way. What I saw was a prison of responsibility that would be very difficult to escape, but something that, because of its inherent value, I would be very reluctant to give up. Now, it is certainly true that the Javelin necessitates a certain amount of content in the universe. Obviously, there's got to be stuff for the Javelin to do. And I'm sure that the Javelin is going to be very effective in doing whatever it is going to do in the Star Citizen universe. I look at it and I constantly remind people that, remember, this thing comes without weapons. You have to purchase the weapon systems and place them on this ship. You have to outfit this ship. That is not something that I would relish in doing, especially trying to do it from an unarmed Javelin, and being dependent on other people to kind of help me along on that process. It was nothing that I was interested in. I think that as long as there is content built around the idea of this ship being used by players, that there is always going to be something super fun for this ship to do. But I just don't think that it is something that is suitable for everyone, though a lot of people might aspire to these heights. I think getting there might, to a certain degree, prove to be a letdown. And I'm not talking about the action, the ship itself, but I'm talking about the day in, day out experience of operating, maintaining, and securing a ship like this might be something that wears on people fairly quickly. So what I would say about the Javelin is, if you are getting a Javelin, if you have a Javelin, know what you're getting into, understand it, and really be a harsh self-critic when you kind of look at the Javelin and try to form an opinion as to what it's going to be like. Be really honest with yourself if you're going to do this. The Eclipse. I think that the Eclipse is possibly one of the strongest ships that CIG has ever brought into the universe. It's a ship that I think it kind of represents a little bit of CIG's short-sightedness, in that I think that there was a very definite opportunity to make two versions of the Eclipse, a reconnaissance and a bomber version. One being more aggressively priced, that being the reconnaissance version. I think that would have led to more sales, and it would have given it a much broader appeal, especially if modularity was brought into play, to where you could swap out the reconnaissance package with the torpedo package, something like that. And I think that it would have seen a lot broader appeal to the community had that have been done. And the fact that the community suggested that, very loudly, and it was completely shot down, was tremendously stupid. It was a big dumb move. It really, really was. I like the Eclipse. The appeal of the Eclipse is completely obvious. As a torpedo bomber, it carries the same torpedoes as the Retaliator, though of course not as many, but these are still very dangerous weapons. Is it a ship that has an everyday use? No. But as a weapon that exists, that existence in and of itself serves a purpose. If, let's say, you're a pirate orc and you have a bunch of Eclipses on the back burner, put away. Everyone knows that you have them, but they don't know where they are because, you know, they're stealthy. They don't know where they are. If they're all about in the universe or if they're tucked away in a hangar, no one really knows where they are. And so this implies a threat that you can't anticipate, a threat that you may not be prepared to deal with. Let's say you run into said pirate org and you're in your capital ship, you're in your Javelin, you're in your Aegis, you're in your Polaris, whatever, or your Hammerhead, and you're saying, oh, I see these rascally pirates, I'm gonna go get them. But wait, I know that they have eclipses. Where are the eclipses? Have I caught these guys off guard, or are they waiting for me? Are they luring me in? Uh-oh, wait a minute. Maybe they've talked about this. Maybe they've said things about this publicly. Maybe they were hoping I'd bring my Hammerhead out to teach them a lesson because they've got a whole bunch of eclipses hiding nearby, and as soon as me and my friends engage, they're going to charge in with their torpedoes and wreck my Hammerhead, or, you know, whatever capital ship. Their existence, I think, as a terror weapon, as something that can instill fear and make people hesitate, is so valuable that I think that even though they are situational, their existence and their ownership is beneficial. Read into that what you will. The Vanguard. Now, the Vanguard is recently a ship that I picked up again to test out with and to fly and to see how it works out, because, you know, I'm always willing to revisit my opinions. And I have seen some really good Vanguards out there, and it made me think, I don't get mad when a ship blows me up. I go, let's think about that. How did that happen? What has this person figured out? Let me see. Let me play around with this a little bit and see how it is. And I have to say that upon revisiting the Vanguard, I have been pleasantly surprised with it. There are still certain things about it that I do not like. Its interior, obviously the limitation of that big kind of pod, the escape pod that drops out of it is still, kind of, it leaves a really strong footprint on the rest of the ship. And so I'm not really sure that I like that part of the design. Once again, when we were talking about the gunships previously, and some people will say, oh, well, those are gunships. This is a heavy fighter. Roughly same size, roughly same weight. They're the same goddamn thing. And, compared to those and compared to other ships, the Vanguard always came up very short on firepower. It now seems to have the maneuverability that it needs to make it viable. I think that it requires more time to really evaluate. It requires a lot more day in, day out use to really form a definite opinion. I still believe that the Harbinger and the Sentinel are going to be the long-term, the more attractive and viable options out of the Vanguard family. And so I feel that there are still possibilities here, but I'm still wary about this ship. I still haven't really formed a final opinion on it. And so as such, it is not a ship that I can really recommend, though it is a ship that I think is worthy of consideration. The Idris. Yes, the Idris. The Aegis is a ship, obviously, that has changed over time, gotten a lot bigger, gotten a lot more interesting. I feel that it is a strong ship. It is a good ship to have. Though, once again, it is a ship that is day in, day out, unproven. So the responsibilities and the material requirements of maintaining a ship like this might prove to be too much of a burden for some of its owners. The effectiveness of a ship of this size, with some people saying, oh no, well, I'm going to run it with an entirely NPC crew, I doubt that. I have my doubts. in regards to that. CIG has never guaranteed that that was going to be a viable option. They've said, well, you can move it around, but I think that there's still going to be some inherent difficulties in operating the larger capital ships with an NPC crew, as some people have, you know, kind of idealized as possible. But as a component of a larger whole, like let's say if you're running a mercenary org and you want to have some serious firepower along with you, whether you're fighting the Vanduul or fighting other players, I don't think that this is something that is going to be entirely out of place. I don't think that this is something that you're going to resent bringing to the fight. I think that this is going to prove to be a very strong ship in that regard. But day in, day out, it's obviously not going to be your everyday flyer unless you have some kind of circumstances where you can guarantee the fact that you can maintain the ship against the wear and tear that is going to inevitably occur while you're operating it. And because we haven't seen those facilities fleshed out to the point where what kind of money you can earn flying something like this, I would say that that's kind of a question mark that hangs over this ship, though obviously there is a point to having it around, and I doubt that it's going to be useless in that regard. Now, when are you likely to see this ship, if you are so inclined to purchase one? That might be dependent on Squadron 42. A lot of people, myself included, have kind of sat back and said, you know what, they probably want to maximize the ooh and the ah factor of Squadron 42, especially in the early stages where, I mean, we've seen the beginning where you kind of go in, you meet Mark Hamill, and you do all that, and you kind of go for a tour around the Aegis, and they probably want to keep as much of that fresh and as much of the exploration of that ship kind of exciting and interesting for players as possible, and certainly having a lot of videos on YouTube of people who own Aegises, taking people on tours through Aegises, it will probably diminish that experience to a certain extent. There is something to be said for discovering these things on your own and kind of having the liberty to kind of explore these things on your own, and that could be diminished by the Squadron 42 experience, certainly. But is it a viable reason to keep it out of the game? I think that there's also a factor that, you know, there's a lot of things that go into the Aegis which they can kind of cobble together and make work for a single player game that would be much more difficult to do for real in Star Citizen. They can kind of fake it till they make it sort of idea with Squadron 42, whereas in Star Citizen there is no real way around it. What works, and what doesn't work is painfully obvious very quickly. You know, there's a lot of arguments I find with people who say, you know, you recommended a change here, you recommended a change there. They're just going to have to go back and redo the ship. They're not going to do that. And it often ignores the very obvious fact that every single ship in Star Citizen at some point is going to go back to art. Every single one. Because every ship is not complete. All the components are not in. All the removable panels are not in. All of that stuff is yet to be done. So all of these ships at one point or another are going to go back and they're going to get a once over. And so it's a good time to get these kind of criticisms in and to get, you know, highlight these concerns. And so there's probably a lot of things like that that are left to be done for the Aegis to make the Aegis truly flyable in Star Citizen. They can kind of fake it in Squadron 42, but in Star Citizen, it's going to be entirely a different thing. And I think that that is probably also something that is it's going to be a while before we see the Aegis, I think. Now, the Retaliator, I think, is probably a more interesting ship. It's a ship that's already in game. You can fly it, and it has a very strong potential for destruction. Obviously, with its torpedoes, it's a very strong weapon, and something that the Hammerhead will probably be wise to look out for. But, you know, a lot of people have kind of looked at the cockpit in this ship, and it is a disaster. And they've kind of looked for changes to this ship. And anytime that CIG has brought it back for any minor adjustments here, there, or anywhere, it has really not changed the nature of the problem of the interior of the Retaliator. The Retaliator was kind of idealized as sort of like a space B-17. I would say that it's probably something closer to like an Aardvark, something like that. It really just it feels like a ship that, you know, they adhered a little too carefully to the exterior. They wanted it to look kind of like the Aegis line. You know, you can definitely see the Gladius and the Retaliator and vice versa. And I think that trying to squeeze what they were trying to, you know, get into the Retaliator to make it that effective bomber, the way they tried to go about it, it didn't do the ship any favors, especially on the interior. And I think that it's definitely an effective weapon of war, but whatever shortcomings it does have, you should probably get used to them if you can get used to them, because I don't really see this as being something that CIG is going to invest all that much time in changing. That's probably also why you don't see a lot of them out there in the verse. The Sabre. I think that the Sabre is probably one of Aegis's strongest ships, in that it is a ship built to a purpose, and it is built extremely well to that purpose. You know, some people might not like certain elements of the styling, whatever. It's effectively armed. It's very well built. It's supposed to be a stealth fighter. It's quick. It's nimble. It handles well. It's got the wings, so you know it's going to handle well in atmosphere as well. I really like it. I really like the Sabre. There isn't really a bad thing that I can say about the Sabre. It is a solid ship, and I don't think that money spent on the Sabre is money wasted if you are looking for an absolutely solid fighter. Not just a stealth fighter, but a solid fighter. I don't think that you're wasting your time with this ship. The Hammerhead. If there was one ship that I feel that stands out as the strongest thing that Aegis offers for players, for, you know, something that is within reach, it is the Hammerhead. Because it represents the sole bridging point in combat, you know, oriented capital ships between the real big capitals and this being kind of a baby capital, and the ships beneath it. It has a broad reach in combat. And I think that that is going to make it, because really it is the only game in town in that department, it is going to make it a ship that is so broadly applicable in terms of combat that owners of this ship are going to see a lot of mileage out of the ship. I think it is going to be one of the ships that sees a lot of adoption. A lot of people are going to be going after this ship, whether they're purchasing it through the store or whether they are, you know, pursuing it in game with in-game money. I think there's going to be a lot of people who have their sights set on this ship, and there's a lot of people out there who currently own one who are very excited to play with the ship and to see it develop and to see the game develop around it. It is unique in that of the capitals, and I do consider it to be a capital, just a baby capital. Of the capitals, it is the only one that is playable right now. And so it's the one that's going to get the most use, the most experimentation. And I think that it is going to benefit intensely from that. And I think that you're going to see a very interesting phenomenon develop around the Hammerhead, because it is the only game in town and because it represents that sole bridging point between capitals and sub-capital ships, especially and the fact that it is combat oriented, is you are going to see a real big community develop within the Star Citizen community around the ship and how to use it, how to build it out, what different weapons to use. There's going to be a lot of people going after this ship and eager to learn about this ship, and there's going to be a lot of people out there experimenting with it. So I think that there is going to be a definite Hammerhead community within the Star Citizen community, and a lot of people watching the ship, looking at the ship, wanting the ship. until other ships show up in that area from other manufacturers, this really is the only game in town, and I think that it is going to be a ship that is going to draw a very big amount of attention on itself, as it represents that almost unskippable stepping stone towards the real big boys. The only real downside that I see to the ship, and it's a downside that I think is going to impact players to a varying degree, it's the lack of storage for weapons and like hand tools and things like that. Obviously, up in the front airlock, there are like these little slots where you can put in spacesuits. Possibly you can stick body armor in there. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if you could. In fact, I would be kind of shocked if you couldn't. But just simple things like the new multi-tool, guns, grenades, medical equipment, things like that. There really just is no place on the ship to store these things at all. And it seems like a tremendous oversight. And I feel that this is something that CIG should probably take steps to remedy sooner rather than later, as this is something that is, as more people are playing and more people are out there using this, and when we get to a point where you can't just magically make weapons and grenades appear out of your magical bag of holding and just put them on your person, when you actually have to physically place all these objects and carry them with you, and you really have to think about the logistics, and that is something that is absolutely coming to Star Citizen. There's no avoiding it. Once we cross that line, you are going to start to see tons and tons and tons of screenshots and Twitter posts and everything on Spectrum of people just showing the ship with a scattered array of weapons all over the floor and saying, CIG, I need a fucking gun rack, please. And I think it's better to tackle that before it becomes a real issue. And finally, the Reclaimer. Now, a lot of people have kind of looked at the Reclaimer over the years and they've said, this is probably one of the more solid profession ships out there. And I agree. Like the Orion, like the Starfarer, the Reclaimer is a ship whose career, whose proficiency, I think is a given. I mean, all you have to do is fly around Yella. You see the asteroid fields. You go down to the surface of a planet. You see all the rocks. These are all resources that can be gathered. Obviously, the Orion, the Prospector, are going to do well. Likewise, the Reclaimer, one of the things you may have noticed is with players playing and doing missions and going out and blasting things up, there's going to be no shortage of wreckage in space to basically reclaim. And that's basically what this ship is all about. That's what it exists for, is clearing up all that scrap, extracting the good components. You've seen what components cost on the market now. Used, slightly damaged, previously enjoyed. What are those components going to be worth? There is a solid case to be made for income based on the Reclaimer. Not only is it physically attractive in an ugly way, it is just a very well organized, very well put together ship. There are no real downsides to the Reclaimer other than the silly panel that comes down over the pilot when you hop into the command seat. It's completely unnecessary. It doesn't have to be there. Most of those monitors can be just mounted off to the side. There's no real reason for them to be there. It just obstructs the view. But apart from that, it's just a solid winner. It has a dizzying array of armament to protect itself with as well. It's just a perfect ship, or nearly perfect. The only thing that I noticed about it recently that I was kind of like, was the fuel capacity being the same as the Vanguard or the Caterpillar, which I believe to be in error. And hopefully it is something that will be fixed in the near future. But, I mean, I've said so much about the Reclaimer over the years that I don't think a lot of it needs to be repeated. It's just absolutely 100% a solid ship. And with that, I end this extraordinary marathon through the Aegis ship lineup.
RSI, please, please, please remember you have other manufacturers apart from Aegis. And with that, thank you. Hope you enjoyed the episode. See you tomorrow.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.